Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Just a little early, early afternoon, late morning show for you guys and gals here on this glorious October the 4th. Obviously getting ready for a full day of Saturday college football. We've also got playoff baseball. I know I got a bunch of Milwaukee Brewer fans in the house, excited to see if they can make this the year. Obviously had a great year. But what we want to do on this episode, we're still going to have our show tonight, 6:30 p.m. Central Time for PTA Live. Make sure you tune into that. We're going to do a deep dive on the players who have had a really solid start to the 2025 season through 4 weeks, albeit. And then we're also going to dive into some other stuff this evening as well. Excited about that. What we're going to do on this particular program, though, this show here this morning, appreciate everybody in the chat. I see Jen Wright, CJN, good to see y'all. Andy Watkins, Joseph, appreciate y'all hopping in here on such short notice. We're going to talk about the defense. We are going to do this the other night. We ran out of time. So we're just going to talk about where this defense ranks across the league in the most important statistical categories and maybe what they're doing different from last year in terms of schematics. So we'll dive into all that as well. Before we do, if you guys would, let's do that YouTube stuff. Hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us part of your morning. We're not experts here. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We are fans just like you talking Packers on the daily. We usually got a full house of guys and gals in here talking ball. So make sure that you click that bell icon and subscribe so you're notified every time we do go live here moving forward in the future. Let's dive into it, man. Let's talk about a little Packers defense. It's funny, guys, going into this bye week, I'm hearing a lot of chatter, and I tune into Packernet After Dark. If you guys don't know what that is, if you just search Packernet Podcast, that's where you can find this show in its podcast form, as well as Ryan Slip, who does the Packernet Podcast, and he does an awesome show called Packernet After Dark, where our listeners get to call in and leave voicemails, and he responds to those voicemails. So the thing that I'm hearing the most is, listen, everybody's going to overreact, myself included. When you get a tough loss, or in this case, a tie down in Dallas, it makes things a little bit tough, and fans tend to overreact. That's why we're called fans, right? We're fanatics. We're crazy about the team. We have high highs and low lows. I try to keep myself a little more grounded than I think most people do. And I know that's a boring way to fan, because when you hear people's reactions after a win or a loss, boy, it seems like they're having a good time overreacting. And it's fun to listen to. It is. However, it seems like a lot of people, a lot of Packer fans are really down on this defense because of the Dallas game. And, going into the Dallas game, as we were prepping for the Cowboys and on this particular program, we try to approach it like the team would approach it. That's why we call it Packers Total Access. We try to look at the important analytics. We try to look at the tape and go, okay, what's to expect? How do we scout the upcoming opponent? We'll do the same thing with the Bengals coming up this week. All week long, we'll be diving into, all right, what do we got to make sure that we don't overlook with the Cincinnati Bengals game coming up next Sunday? But with that being said, we try to look at it from the coach's standpoint, from the players and the organization and their viewpoint. And I wasn't surprised that Dallas came out and were able to score points. We talked about going into the week. One of my keys to the game plan was control the clock, lean on the run as much as you possibly can, and don't get caught in a shootout with the Cowboys. If you look up in the fourth quarter and both teams have over 30 points, probably a good indicator the game plan hasn't gone the way you wanted it to go. And that's exactly how Dallas wants to play ball. What Dallas wants to do with that high-powered offense, even without CeeDee Lamb, guys, they're a solid offense. What they're looking to do is they're looking to keep the game close. Their defense is focused now, since they traded away Micah Parsons. They're focused on stopping the run first. And what do you do there? If you stop the run, you control the clock, and you get these teams kind of put into a shootout mentality with Dak Prescott, who's playing quarterback as good as anybody in the league, man. I know everybody was looking for answers. Some people were saying we play too much zone and we were playing too far off the ball. Others were saying we play too much man coverage. There was a combination of both. We broke it down on Chalk Talk. There were times we gave up explosive plays in cover one man, which we've been playing a lot more of this year. And then there were other times during that game that we were playing spot drop and we got cooked underneath, right? What's the call? If you play cover one man too aggressive, you're giving up explosive plays over the top. If you're playing cover 3 spot drop, you're giving up plays underneath on the comebacks and things. And the reality is these offenses, and specifically in Dallas, really all across the league, you've got choice routes attached. So if they read over the top leverage, then their choice route, it may be a go hook or a go comeback, right? And what that means is you stretch the defense vertically, and if that corner flips his hips, you now know they're in a cover 3 or some kind of a deep man technique. All right, let's break it off into a comeback route. And Dak was spot on his timing with those throws to George Pickens and Turpin. To give you an example of a spot drop aspect that didn't go well was the Keyshawn Nixon when he gave up the big play on the sideline. Guys, that was the perfect play call. The pass rush got to Dak. He had the rollout. What happened? Keyshawn, who's our best corner, I don't want to dismiss that at all. He's been our best cornerback this year. There's no arguing that. He's been one of the best corners in the league, as a matter of fact. But what did he do? He played his deep third and just kind of gave up on the play. Turpin comes back to the ball. Dak extends the play just enough with 2 defenders in his face, and he converts for an explosive down the sideline. Boom, another big play, right? There was times on spot drop where you notice the defenders were not being aggressive on covering the guys in and out of their zone. Guys, when you call cover 3 zone, any kind of zone, when you call spot drop, it's not you just sit in this area and unless somebody comes within 3 feet of you, you don't move. All right. So when you see a defender do that, as my, my good friend, Coach Chris Haddad says, who's on the program from time to time, taught me a lot about defense. Great coach, great coaching family. He said, a zone defense, is not designed to cover grass. A blade of grass has never gained 1 yard on a defense in the game of football at any level. So the goal is to cover those players as they're entering and exiting your zone. So when you see a player just drop back and play off, oh no, they caught it underneath, that's on the player. That's not on the scheme. That's not on that was just a good call. Now, if it's a timing based route like you've seen on some of those comebacks on Carrington Valentine, it's hard to cover those. It really is. So what's the answer to that? We'll get into it on the backside of this video. I think you need to call more cover 2 than more cover 3. And that's what you look for is when you look at what's worked in the past, i.e. 2024, right? And then you look at what you're doing in 2023 and you break it down from a coverage standpoint, cover 3, cover 2, cover 6, cover 4, cover 1 man, cover 0 man, cover 2 man, all that, 2 man under, everything. And you go, okay, what are you doing different from last year that maybe isn't working this year? The big thing that sticks out to me is the defense is working this year. Even with the Dallas game, the Dallas game's been the stinker. We took you back to 1996 where they had the number 1 defense in the league and won the Super Bowl. Guys, they had stinkers that year. Matter of fact, I think it was week 4 of that. It was either week 3 or week 4 of that season that Green Bay traveled up to the Metrodome in Minnesota, and they dropped like over 30 points on them, just torched them. Same thing happened in 2010 when you had the number 1 defense in the league that won you the Super Bowl, right? So just because you have a great defense doesn't mean you're not going to have these games where you're giving up 25, 35, 40 points. It's going to happen, especially when it extends into overtime, obviously. So with that being said, the people who are calling in all of a sudden, what's wrong with the defense? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong with the defense. You hit buzzsaws throughout the season. You've got to adjust, and you got to understand these teams are watching your previous 4 game saturation of the tape, and they're going, okay, here's what they're doing. Here's how we're going to attack it. And there's soft spots in that. Now, if the argument becomes, well, we don't adjust fast enough, what other adjustment did you want? We showed cover 3. We played cover 6 match. We played cover 1 man. We played cover 0 a couple times in that particular game. So we were aggressive with blitzes at times. We were conservative with 7 in coverage at times. Sometimes the other team is just better. Sometimes the other team makes the plays at the specific moment they need to make the plays to win the ball game. And sometimes, just like what happened on Sunday night there against the Cowboys, is you make bad decisions in crucial times as a coaching staff, which they did in the middle 8. Nobody's talking about the middle 8. All they're talking about is that last sequence at the end of the game when they could have potentially scored the game-winning touchdown. Guys, you got stopped by their defense. Could there have been better clock management? Absolutely. But nobody's talking about the fact that we lost the middle 8 14-0, and it was because of a coaching decision. You already were losing at 7-0, and you try to double down and get some points with less than a minute left. What happened? You gave up another 7 points off the strip sack, right? And people immediately jumped on, well, the offensive line is hot garbage. The offensive line actually played good against the Cowboys. You ran the ball effectively. You were able to protect Jordan Love. That was the only sack he took all game long. So in that crucial situation, they had the right play call. They made the play at that crucial time, just like they made the play when Keyshawn gave up on the deep third call there, and they converted on that play, just like George Pickens was working those timing routes, those choice routes, absolute perfection with Dak Prescott. It is what it is. You're going to have games like that. The whole point of me saying that is I'm not telling anybody how to fan. I'm simply saying these things happen, even with the best defenses in the league. The Packers going to be fine. I believe that. Now, let's talk about where they rank on the season here. And you guys let me know in the comments what you think about all that as well, man. So, as Joseph said, Nixon's been so good. He has. And Joseph, you heard us. We've talked about it, right? We've talked about how good he's been. And then we also talked about, man, you can't make that mental mistake, right? Both things can be true. We got to stop this crazy cycle that we're in as Packer fans, where it's 1 second, these guys are world beat. I mean, we were literally going into week 3. The fan base was talking about Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl. It's done deal. I heard Homer on the Homer, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, just because he is so outrageous in some of his takes. Isn't it funny that the guy who's the most boring podcaster on the Packers in all of Packers media, if you will, and me, is the one who likes the outrageous takes. It's hilarious, right? But he was talking about, it's already a slam dunk. They've won the North. I'm going 2 weeks. We don't even know what this team is yet, right? And you typically don't know until about halfway through the season, and then it becomes a game of adjustments, right? So, as Jen says, Nixon living up to that number 1 cornerback talk. Absolutely he is. Absolutely he is. So, Holmes MD1 Reed came out of anesthesia saying as much. See, I give Jaden Reed a pass. Jaden Reed was higher than a kite, right? That's when he said, we go into the bowl, and we may go to the bowl, right? We may go to the Super Bowl. I hope he's correct. But, Holmes, I'm talking about some of these media members and fans that were talking about it after week 2, and they were not high, to the best of my knowledge. So, with that being said, all right, let's get into it. Defensive scoring. So, points per play allowed. Guys, why is this so important to me? We've talked about this time and time again. The reason this is important to me is it removes a lot of the noise. Okay, if you just look at points per game, it can be very, very misleading. Meaning, if the offense turned the ball over twice in the red zone and that led to a couple extra scoring drives there, right? And let's say it took 7 or 8 plays and the defense kind of stood tall, but they still gave up 3 points or what have you, that points per game looks way, way worse than the points per play allowed, because you maybe stood tall and it took another 7 or 8 play sequence to get into the end zone. That stuff matters. That's showing how truly effective a defense is. And this is a great gambling metric. If you guys like to gamble, this gives you a much better viewpoint on how good a offense or defense is when you're talking about points per play, as opposed to just points per game. That can be very, very misleading, right? So points per play allowed, even after the Cowboys dropped that 40 burger, or 38 points, I should say, on the Packers. Even after that, we are ninth in the league in points per play allowed. Guys, and I know we played Cleveland, but we also played Detroit, who is just, I'm talking about dropping 30 plus. It seems like every other game I look up at the box score. Maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like Detroit is just still scoring at will, right? Washington, going into the year, they were hyped as one of the best teams in the league. All of a sudden, they get off to a slow start and they suck. I'm telling you, Washington will probably be in it by the end of the year. So you've played 3, in my opinion, 3 really good offenses up to this point, and you played 1 bad offense. And even at that, you're ninth in the league in points per play. Now, if you'll notice, look at the Dallas game, 0.597, right? So obviously that's the inflated number. Even with that number, you're at a 0.331. And again, if it was points per game, it would be more evenly distributed, and that's very misleading. But when you're talking about on a per play basis, how effective is this defense on a per play basis? They're not best in the league. So that's why I'm not overly concerned about the defense, if that makes sense. So let's move along to running defense, okay? Rushing defense. Guys, we are 4th in the league in yards per carry allowed. We're only allowing 3.6 yards per rush, okay? So when the opposing team runs the ball, we're only allowing 3.6 yards. That is tied for 4th best alongside Washington and Seattle. The only teams better are the New England Patriots, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Cleveland Browns, which, again, people like to pretend like us losing to Cleveland, that's such a bad football team. That's such a bad football team. Guys, they got the number 1 rush defense in the league. And it's another reason we shouldn't panic too much on the offensive line and the running game just yet. Detroit had a great defense last year. Washington had a great defense last year. Cleveland has the best rush defense this year, right? So again, something else just to take into consideration. And we talked about Dallas's run defense as well, guys. They're tied for 10th now. Last week they were tied for 7th, but we ran the ball effectively on them and dropped them down to the 10 spot now, tied for the 10 spot. There was San Francisco and Arizona, along with New Orleans and Las Vegas. So why do I mention that? Our run defense is top 5 right now. Top 5. It's closing in on top 3 rush defense. We're fine on run defense. We're going to be just fine. And that's with the losing Kenny Clark as well, who you guys know we pointed out last year. He really played conservative in the pass rush and helped cover the run quite a bit. So you minus Kenny Clark, and all of a sudden, the run defense is still kind of stabilized. That's a good thing because you were able to use that to bolster your pass rush. Now, I know people are thinking, what's the pass defense look like, Clayton? We're going to get to it in a second. I think you're going to be surprised because many people think the pass defense is just absolute cheeks now. And again, the most important metric is points per play allowed. I don't care what anybody said. They could pretend like run defense is more important than points allowed, or pass defenses, or sacks, or turnovers, blah, blah, blah. The only thing close would be turnovers. But at the end of the day, if you ask someone, hey, which would you rather do? Give up less points or have more turnovers? The answer is always going to be less points from a defensive standpoint, So, again, rush defense, we're fine. We're 4th. All right, moving along. Look at the passing defense, guys. Does it surprise you? We are tied for 3rd in yards per pass attempt allowed. 3rd, only allowing 5.2 yards per pass attempt. Guys, we are a top 3 passing defense right now. So again, why am I pointing all this out? If you go back and listen to the fan reaction last week, people are there. I mean, they were talking as if this defense is hot garbage now, right? Now, you guys know my reaction was when everybody's piling on special teams. I looked up and was like, guys, we gave up 38 points on defense and nobody's talking about it, right? Now, what's the moral of the story there? Let's slow down a little bit here. Let's slow down. Let this team settle in, see what we've actually got. I've gave my piece on special teams. You guys know where I stand. And it was nice to hear Brian Balaga mention it as well, because he pressed into what I was saying as well, in terms of, he said, look at the players that you got playing those specific positions, right? To me, it's not a coaching thing when a guy misses a block. I mean, yeah, you could spend more time with that guy. Yeah, you can harp on the technique even more. But the reality is, and you'll hear every former player in the NFL talk about this, they do not practice field goal block much at all. Because and I think it was Mark Tauscher talking about this, because on field goal block, guys, it's literally just the defense teeing off on the guys that are on the line of scrimmage, those 9 guys. And the goal there is, as they say, is die a slow death. That's what they always say, because you're going to get knocked on your ass. You're going to get blasted off the ball. Do it slowly. That's tough place to be in. Now, again, who was responsible for the blocked kicks? Last week, or against Cleveland, Jordan Morgan in the middle, right? Jordan Morgan in the middle at whatever it would be considered left guard or whatever position is there on field goal protect. He's the one who got the ball swatted. There's still people saying, I think the guy coming off the edge got a tip. This player said they did. The coaching staff said they didn't. Who cares about whether or not that guy got a tip or not? You could see the ball was still going through the upright, even if he did barely get a piece of the ball, and we're going to break down the tape like the Zapruder film or something and go, he got his fingertip, but still you could tell it was on track until it hit that big paw. It's easy to also look up and go, man, that guy that blocked it for Cleveland, I think they said he had like 8 or 9 field goal blocks throughout his career, something crazy, right? So he's been effective. But again, Jordan Morgan right there in the middle. And what was the reason for the block? Matt talked about it, bad pad level. Well, everybody else on the offensive line on that play didn't have bad pad level. How can you blame the coach for a player having bad pad level when it was only one player that did it? Fast forward to the block in Dallas. What happened? Luke Musgrave off the right side. He just fans out to take the gunner and allows the dude right through the gap, shortest route. Anybody who has watched football for any significant amount of time, former player, coach, anybody, this is what Bulaga said. It was like that when you watch that player block that kick, guys, Musgrave was not supposed to just fan out and leave that gap open, okay? Well, it's Bisaccia's job to coach him. If you had to say If you had to ask, what is Luke Musgrave's strength in his game? Where do you think pass blocking would be? Because that's essentially what you're doing in that situation. You're mimicking pass blocking, right? Where do you think he would rank in that category? And I pause for dramatic effect. Why the hell was he out there? That's on Rich Bisaccia. Why was he out there? Well, you ask yourself that. Well, the previous week, everybody was saying Tucker Kraft whiffed on the block, right? So Tucker Kraft's still on the left side. You put Musgrave on the right, and he whiffs. Now, rewind. What did Bulaga say? Well, we had a great group of guys. We had Mercedes Lewis out there doing that. Now, rewind back, and I'm not saying we should go sign Mercedes Lewis. That ship has left the shipyard, right? But why did we move on from Mercedes Lewis? Because we wanted to get younger. We wanted to get more athletic, right? Guys, you're talking about a player that would be third or fourth on your tight end depth chart, right? He's not seeing the field unless you've got crazy injuries going on. Why not go and try to find someone or find a backup offensive lineman that has been on really good field goal units in the past and plug and play him as kind of that specialist type player on the wing? You can approach it that. There's a multitude of ways you can approach it. But again, didn't want to talk special teams, but I'm just pointing that out because we all overreact. I was hearing people call into Packer Net After Dark, and they were talking about how bad his defense. His defense is garbage. What's going on? Guys, we are literally top 5 in just about every category that's important. So that's how I see that. Yards per pass attempt, they are third in the league right now. Moving along to takeaways. This is the big eyesore. You want to know what's wrong with the Packers defense? This is it right here. Defensive takeaways per game, we are 26th in the league in takeaways, okay? We're only averaging a half a takeaway per game. Last year, we were in the top 3 all year long. I want to say we finished second, I believe, but we were definitely top 3 pretty much all season long. Now, if you rewind back to immediately following the draft and free agency, and we were kind of doing a little season preview, we talked extensively about this. I said, I expect, and I'm not asking anybody else or telling anybody else to fan this way or believe what I'm saying. I'm just going based off of what I've seen through studying the game of football since about 2009 is when I really started studying the NFL. I've noticed that every year when you have a new defensive coordinator hire or a new defensive coach brought in and you see a defense jump, most of the time, a large majority of the time, something like 85 to 90% of the time, that defense will take a slight step back the next year. It's not that he forgot how to coach. It's not that the defense got worse. Hell, we went and got Micah Parsons, right? What happens is these teams have that full offseason, an offseason to watch the tape, a full season of tape of what you did, both on offense and defense, and go, okay, we're prepared to attack that now. That's why Hafley made the comment in training camp, we've already got our adjustment ready to be installed. Basically, we're going to treat the first quarter of the season, and he didn't say quarter, but I'm about 99% sure this is how teams operate. Things typically work in quarterly fashion from a coach standpoint in the league. I think the plan was, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a little more man coverage in the first quarter. We'll see how teams adjust, and then we've got an adjustment for that. Mark my words. I would be very, very, very surprised if we look up after week 8 or 9 and we're not running more cover 2 zone than we did in the first quarter of the season, because that's the thing that's changed. Okay, let me show to you what we mean here. And again, why are you not getting more turnovers? I think you're playing more man coverage, 2% more man coverage this year in cover 1 fashion. Guys, you're going to have less interceptions when you're playing man coverage. Your back is to the ball. You're most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you're playing the receiver and you're reacting to them, the late hands, all those things. Your eyes are on your work, as coaches like to say, as opposed to you playing a zone and you got eyes on the quarterback reading that ball. That's why the turnovers are down as well. Also, less cover 2 zone. And the reason that's important, guys, the difference between cover 3 and cover 2 is you've got one extra defender playing in the underneath fashion. Now, rewind back, Dallas game, where did they beat us? What did most of the fans complain about? It's just they would just go out there and sit in the zone. They would sit in between the zone, or they would just run an underneath route and they were wide open. Everybody was playing over the top. They were playing conservative. When you were getting beat underneath on comeback routes in man coverage, that's not, you're playing too aggressive. You're not playing too conservative. Now, if you're asking that corner to just sit and play with underneath technique, you're getting cooked over the top 9 times out of 10, right? Because that's cover one man. Your job is to funnel everything to the middle of the field towards the post safety, and you cannot get beat over the top outside leverage. Therefore, underneath is wide open. Okay. That's why I don't like man covers. I've been very, very vocal about that this entire time. Your run defense typically takes a hit when you play man coverage as well. So if you play more cover two, you're going to get more takeaways. I expect this number to go up, guys. They're going to come, like Matt LaFleur said, they're going to come in bunches when they come. The turnovers do, right? Right now, it has not happened. But again, we can't sit back every year and expect turnovers to continue to happen the way they did last year, where Xavier McKinney was just, they were throwing him the ball, it seemed like every other play, and he's just picking it out of the air, right? So just keep that in mind. I think the turnovers will get better as well, but that's where you've struggled as a defense, is defensive takeaways per game. You're 26th so far in this young season. All right. Now let's talk about scheme change. So let's start with the current in mind here, okay? Yeah, I like that. I like what Jen says here. Save turnovers for the December run. Amen to that. Amen to that. And also, she mentions Devontae White. Huge, Jen. Devontae White is a key cog for this defense. And the fact that they haven't announced they put him on IR or anything, and they officially listed him week to week, gives me hope that I think he'll be back for Arizona. Hopefully, if he's not 100%, keep him out of the Cincy game. And listen, I'm not saying it's a slam dunk to beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati Bengals could come into Lambeau and beat the Packers. Crazier things have happened. So we got to stop. We got to get out of that mindset of, oh, well, this is a guaranteed win. That's a guaranteed win. That's how you end up on a Monday morning talking out of your mind. And then, 4, 5, 6 weeks later, you look back and you're like, man, I'm kind of embarrassed on the take I had there in week 5 or whatever week 6, because we get this mindset that there's certain games on the schedule that are just slam dunk wins. It's just not the case. We're going to win some games we should lose. Look at weeks 1 and 2. Many people thought we were starting the season 0-2. I haven't forgotten about that, by the way. There's a lot of the sports media that are raking the Packers over the coals right now that said the Packers were going to start 0-2. And they got damn quiet after week 2, right? And now all of a sudden you drop 2 heartbreakers, 2 close games. Both games you lose by 3 points, right? You lose 1 by 3. The tie still feels like a loss, right? And you end up tying. Now all of a sudden it's, the Packers are hot garbage. Now, see, that's that emotional roller coaster they want you to ride all season long. But schematics, week 4 through week 4, the Packers are sitting at a positive 0.005 EPA per drop back as it sits right now. They dropped significantly from last year. They finished the year at a negative 0.02, low number wins here, okay? So you see they've taken a step back in EPA per drop back. That's an important statistic. So keep in mind, passing defense, we just showed you yards per pass attempt, where they sit, top 5. Now, let's take into consideration the EPA per drop back. Let's see where they sit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14th in the league in EPA per drop back. So if you take those numbers and throw them together, you got about a top 7, top 8 passing defense, in my opinion. That's where they're at right now. Now, let's talk about what they did schematically. 37% cover 3, 21% cover 2, 18% cover 1 man, and then 1% cover 0, which is a 0 blitz. It's no safeties up top. It's blitzing with man coverage across the board, okay? 14% cover 6. All right, why is that important? Let's compare it to last year, okay? Let's focus on man coverage. This year, we're running 19% man coverage, with 18% being cover 1 man. Last year, the Packers only ran 16% cover 1 man. And you see the total is 19%, but that 3% cover 0, guys, that's typically, I'm talking about 90% of the time, when you run cover 0, those numbers are coming from goal line situations where you're just playing man up and you're loading the box inside the 5 top scenario. So the number you want to look at there is cover 1 man. So we're running 2% more cover 1 man this year, middle field close, than we did last year. To me, I think that was a part of the plan with Hafley. All right, let's play a little more man coverage. Let's see if these guys can handle man coverage. Let's see if we're hitting home on the pass rush. And week to week, you're going to see these numbers inflate depending on the game plan, the opponent they're playing that specific week. But with all that being said, I think that you're going to now see them press into a little more cover two is what I think you're going to see. Because you look last year, we ran 25% of the time. We ran cover two zone, guys. That was the second most in the league, cover two zone, right? This year, we went from 25% down to 21%. So I think you're going to see more cover two. And with more cover two zone, I think along with that comes more turnovers. That's what I think the adjustment will be that they're going to make here into the second quarter of the season, if that makes sense. So that's what I think is going to be happening there. So, yeah, that's right. Homestead is that third column cover two man. That's 2-man under is typically what that is. Yeah, and we're running that 0% of the time. 2-man under is real simple. Man coverage across the board, 4-man rush, and then you got 2 safeties deep. The weakness of cover 2-man is, I'm sure you're well aware, Holmes and many other people are, they'll run the ball down your throat if you're playing cover 2-man. That's the way that defenses like to play Aaron Rodgers back in the day. And like Aaron said, the only way to really combat it is you got to run them out of it, right? So I don't like cover 2-man. And 2-man under, you're playing a trail technique, so you're taking the underneath away and you're playing over the top. But when you do that with the safeties on the shelf, you got to really do a late rotation and try to sell the fact that you got a loaded box and trick them into, oh crap, pre-snap. We thought they were in single high safety, middle field close. It ended up being middle field open, although it's 2-man under. And the other thing there too is quarterbacks can run on you like crazy out of 2-man under. So you got to be real careful with that. But yeah, that's what the third column is 2-man under. So yeah. So that's what I think the adjustment is going to be here in the second quarter of the season. Is I think you're going to see us shift back to what we did last year a little bit more and press in the cover 2 zone a little bit more. And you're going to see less cover 1-man. That's just me personally. And again, it depends on the opponent. Let me give you an example. We're playing Cincinnati this week, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we play a lot of cover 1-man against Cincinnati because Joe Burrow's out, right? Although they got great receivers. We've talked about that. Your Jamar Chases, your T. Higgins, right? But if you load the box and you play more cover 1-man with an emphasis on stopping the run, you're going to make yourself really, really vulnerable to the pass. But I would not be surprised if Jeff Hafley treats this game like, hey, look, we're really going to pressure their quarterback. We're going to try to get to him, and he's not going to be able to make those timing-based throws that Dak Prescott did. He's not going to be able to get the ball out with pressure in his face the way Dak Prescott did. He's not going to be able to evade the pass rush for a split second to be able to create a secondary window to throw the ball like Dak Prescott did. So don't be surprised if it takes a game or two before this stuff starts to come to fruition. But Arizona, for example, you're going to be facing Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a mobile quarterback, dual threat quarterback. I'm not saying he's great. I haven't really dove into his tape this year and how he's playing yet. But when you get to Arizona, that screams cover 2 zone to me, just me personally. So that might be the way to go there. So Chase Green, Clayton, do you like playing cover 1 robber on third downs? It depends on the down and distance, obviously, Chase, but I know where you're going here, and I agree with what you're saying. When you play cover 1 robber, even if it's a late rotation, if you line up spur and you play the safety in the box and play cover 1 robber, it's a little less deceptive, so a little less effective against the pass. But when you play cover 1 robber and that safety rotates into that hook curl zone, they're in the run fit tremendously, right? Safeties are always in the run fit, don't get me wrong, but you put yourself in a position where you can stop the run a little bit easier. Now, if you're playing a cover 1 hole, it's kind of the opposite, right? With a cover 1 hole, the safety's in man coverage somewhere. He's spur, but he's man coverage somewhere, and you've got a linebacker dropping back in a hook curl. Well, what's their mindset? I got to get back in my zone first and foremost, right? Well, that might take their decision-making way a split second from playing their run fit correctly, right? So when you play robber, the safety's coming downhill into his run fit. You really like your chances against stopping the run there. On third downs, it depends on the situation, though. I'm a big cover 3 guy. I like cover 3, and I love simulated pressure. That's the thing Hafley did really well last year, and we've gotten away from it. So expect more of that in the second quarter of the season as well. And what I mean by simulated pressure is that coffee house, what we call double barrel. I think Hafley calls it coffee house, where you're mugging the A gaps with Ezra and Cooper and Quay Walker, and then you're dropping those guys out. So you're showing pterodactyl in here. You're showing like a 6 and 7 man rush, right? And you're actually only bringing 4. So, in that coffee house, one of the things they like to do is they like to mug the A gaps. They like to drop one of those backers out after they occupy a hat and then scrape blitz off of that and then drop a defensive end on the other side into coverage, and everything kind of rotates over. That stuff's important. Make the quarterback have to make decisions post snap. It all goes back to the way we talk about quarterback play and how we think, no one else, and I don't want to speak for anybody else that's on the show as a host, but the four attributes that are most important for a quarterback, in my opinion, are accuracy, quick release, pre-snap read, post-snap read, right? And what that means, you're going, what's pre-snap and post-snap? Pre-snap is you come to the line, you dissect the play, you get yourself in the best play possible for what the defense is showing. Although we know they could be sugaring, that may not be the actual defense called, right? They may have a safety in the box playing spur, right? And then you snap the ball and they're in a quarters coverage. He bails out, right? So pre-snap, what are they doing? What are they showing? Let's get in the best look we can. And then post-snap, what do they do? How do you read the defense? And then, of course, accuracy is so important. And you got to have that quick release. And if there's someone that's saying, I would rather have throwing power over quick release, let me explain why I disagree. Anybody who's playing in the league has a strong enough arm to make just about every throw in the league. Maybe not as effective on the 18-yard out routes as a Jordan Love is, but they've got the arm strength to make the NFL throws. However, that doesn't make a hill of beans if it takes you an extra split second to get the ball out because you don't have quick enough release and you can't change arm angles and you can't do the things necessary to get the football out on time, right? So those are the four things that are most important for me. And you'll notice that when you're showing coffee house, when you're showing these double A gap mugs and you're doing simulated pressures and you're dropping guys in and out of coverage, that's why I roll my eyes there. And I'm not going to mention the names, but the Packers media people that are talking about you want to get pressure with 4 and drop 7 in the cover it. Yes, you do, but you're making it sound as if let's just line 4 up and go get the quarterback. Guys, you do that, you're going to get your ass kicked in the NFL. And you've kind of seen a little bit of that with the Packers early on, is they're just showing 4 and they're bringing 4. Show 8 and just bring 4. Why not? Make the quarterback think every single play. You don't want to show too much simulated pressure in run situations because you can throw your gap integrity in the run defense off tilt a little bit, and next thing you know, you're giving up explosive there. So there's give and take with every situation. So yeah. But yeah, and I agree with this. What Coach says, Jordan is great at pre-snap and post-snap reads. He really is, man. He's come a long way, guys. Holy cow, is he playing good football? I was looking at the numbers today, and he's graded out as like the 6th best quarterback in the league right now, according to PFF. And other numbers suggest he's top 3, right? And we broke that down. We're not going to rehash that too deep. But long story short, Jordan Love, remember we said we want to get back to back half 2023 Jordan Love? He's playing like back half 2023 Jordan Love right now. I mean, he really is. You have 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. And that 1 interception should not have happened. It was a boneheaded decision for him to throw that ball, right? But he checked to a man beater. He got man coverage, and their guy made a great play, broke off his coverage, and robbed it, right? I was more mad at LaFleur in that situation for putting him in a situation to pass the ball when we had the game in hand against Cleveland. If he doesn't throw that interception, we win that ball game. There's nobody on the face of the earth that's going to convince me otherwise. So if you take that 1 throw away, you're looking at 8 touchdowns, no picks right now. And I think he would be the only quarterback in the league that would have 0 interception. I know he's one of only 3 quarterbacks that have 8 touchdowns, 1 pick right now. And I think that was, I want to say it was Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and Jordan Love. I could be wrong there, though. But there's only 3. No, yeah, maybe it wasn't Lamar. I know Baker was one of them. But nonetheless, man, Jordan doing great, man. Jordan playing great. Fishy Thing says, I give Jordan an A+ on pre-snap reads, but a B- on post-snap. I think that's a fair grade, Fishy Things. I do. There's times, boy, he reads the defense like a book, but there's other times you go, what are you looking at, bub? As I'm sitting back on my couch eating Cheetos watching the game, right? Like, as if I could do anything better. But, yeah, so Steve says he threw into triple coverage. Why? It actually wasn't triple coverage. What it was they were playing man coverage, and the guy underneath that ends up picking the pass off, he was actually manned up on the 3. We watched the tape back on Chalk Talk. So Jordan comes to the line. Matt gives him the option to check to whatever he needs to check to. You know, they typically got a can play or 2. And I want to say this was mentioned in one of our other chats. People are convinced that every time we can, we're just canning to a run. We're canning to a run. We're canning to a run. Guys, there can be both play calls could be run. Just because you hear can and we run the ball don't mean we canned out of a pass to a run. It could have been 2 run calls. It could have been 2 pass calls, right? 2. So I know sometimes people try to build the argument to fit their narrative, but that's definitely a thing. Every can call, most can calls have a run and a pass attached, but not all of them, right? But in that specific situation, Steve, what he did, he came up, red man coverage, can to it was I remember it was tosser, Y cross corner, right? Tosser is a concept that's double slants, big man beater, right? And then the cross corner was you had the Y who was in that tray left look in craft was going to start with a climb route and then break it off into a corner. If you watch the tape back, the guy who jumped the route, right? The guy who jumped the route and picked the pass off was supposed to be man coverage on Tucker. So Jordan comes to the line, he reads man coverage, snaps the ball, sees man coverage, knows this guy's in man coverage on Tucker. He just didn't expect that guy to break off of his coverage and dive underneath the route. So hindsight being 2020, if Jordan had known that guy was just going to completely ignore his guy, then he would have snapped the ball. They were simulating pressure as well. They had a backside safety coming a long way over. He would have had to been the one to make the play on Tucker Kraft. He was playing deep middle. So they were in a cover 1 blitz look is what they were in. So hindsight being 2020, Jordan drops the pass rather than just lock on to Dontavion Wicks. And what he's doing is he's looking at Wicks going, okay, I know it's man coverage. Let me give him time to beat his guy. It took a second, had to give a little outside jab, work back inside, create separation. What you want to do there is scan the field, snap the ball, your eyes are on Wicks, and look underneath and make sure they don't have some kind of robber, right? Make sure they don't have some kind of drop. And he would have read that guy, and then his next read would have been Tucker, maybe throw a little pump and just a little lob pass first down. And nobody's complaining about the pass call, right? If that happens. So it was a mistake on Jordan's part. But again, I blame Matt LaFleur for just it's hilarious. People on Twitter claiming that Matt LaFleur is too conservative. I've seen 2 games that we've lost that we should have won, but we were too aggressive. That's what I've seen. And I explain that because that particular play, if we don't throw the ball in that situation and you just go out there as a head coach and go, Jordan, listen, no matter what they give you here, I want to run the rock. Let's go 2 can run plays here. I'm going to give you this out of the huddle. Here's another run play. As if I've got enough time to explain this. They've got like 7 seconds to get this information relayed to Jordan, right? But in that situation, there was no way Cleveland was going to march down the field, the length of the field, and beat you. It just wasn't going to happen. Daniel Whelan was going to have a hell of a punt like he has all year long. This is if you don't pick up the first down. And looking at it back, you could probably pick up the first down if I think we were sidecar right, and you just go with an inside zone. I love Jacobs or Emmanuel Wilson to pick up 3 yards. You know what? If they don't pick it up, punt the ball, make them go the length of the field. And if they can go the length of the field and beat you that way, they deserve to win. You didn't. But to outsmart yourself in that situation, it's really tough for me. But again, Matt LaFleur has forgot more about the game of football than I will ever know. I promise you that. So, but yeah, in terms of triple coverage, he technically threw into double coverage, but it was a man coverage call where that guy just bailed on his assignment. And in that situation, Jordan's got to know, hey man, even though I'm reading man, and I guarantee you they talked about it in the film room. Even though you're reading man, we all know it's man coverage. Just take a quick peek inside, make sure somebody isn't robbing on you, that type of thing. So, all right, that's it, guys. Didn't plan on going this long, man. 43 minutes. That is insane. I was planning on going like 15 minutes. So just want to give you guys a defensive breakdown, but I'm glad we got to chat about the rest of the team in here. We'll be back tonight, 6:30 p.m. Central for PTA Live, where we're going to dive into the offensive line. I'm going to tell you guys what I think we should do on offensive line moving forward, how we can fix those problems that we've got there. Offensive line played better against Dallas, but I'm gonna explain why I think we should go a little bit different direction in terms of the starting 5 and who the backups should be on each side. I want to get the guys' take on that, and then we will also on the backside of that show here tonight, we'll talk about the players on from a PFF standpoint, who have been the top performing players so far. And if we have time, we'll cross check that with NFL Pro and Next Gen Stats to see, okay, is that just PFF being really, really nice to these guys or really critical of those guys? Or are there analytics and advanced metrics on NFL Pro to back up their stance on that as well? But as far as this video, that's it. Let me know in the comments. If you guys are watching this video back later, let me know in the comments. What do you think about the Packers defense? Are you worried? Are you satisfied with what Hafley's done? Do you agree with the second quarter adjustments we talked about? be right. We got to make this numbers be horrible. Reacting. Defense is going to so uh, anytime here on making this part of your day. Go Packers. Maybe they can upset the Wolverines, and obviously go Brewers. It should be a first or two. Everybody for everything we do. We're talking balls and the rest of the goals tonight. Everybody.
Here we go.
Bye, guys.